For this session, like to invite up on stage some fantastic customer of ours. So we've got Mark from Milstead Langdon. Come and take a seat. Louise from Newydd Housing. Ben Rubin from IOP Publishing. And Sam from IOP Publishing. Come and join us. We've got quite a small little stage, so I'll step over this side. Sam, I'll pass you that first. We just need to pass that up and down the audience. So first of all, thank you ever so much. I appreciate anybody coming up and sitting on the stage in front of these wonderful people that we have here is a little bit daunting, so really do appreciate it. I wanted to make sure that we were showing some stories of real-life change, a little bit warts and all, not too many warts kind of thing, but a little bit of kind of an honest update as to what's happening. So first of all, can I ask you all to introduce yourselves, what you do for your organisations, please? Start with Sam.
Yes. Hello. Nothing yet. I press the button. Is that on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, cool. So I'm Sam Brimble. I'm the head of digital at the Institute of Physics Publishing, and I've been doing it for about a year now.
Hello everyone, I'm Ruben Grosvenor-Brown, or you can call me Ben, and I'm the Digital Innovation and Engagement Manager, also at IOP Publishing. I've been in that role only very recently, but I've been working at the organisation for 5 years.
And I'm Mark Smith. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Milstead Langdon Accountants. I've been there for about 7 years now, starting off the role in a much more technical IT role, and now moving on to much more business focused.
And hello, I'm Louise Hamer, Head of IT at Newydd Housing. Been there for 8 years. Actually, my anniversary was yesterday. So, yeah, that's me.
So the reason I've invited these customers up on stage is we've been working with all these organisations for many years now, I think. But certainly what I saw during the COVID period, but equally before with all these organisations, is they'd already started to think differently, to implement things in a different way. And one of the many successes that I've seen them all going through during the last few months is their office refits, which I think is quite pivotal. We're not all able to completely redesign our offices, but I think there's a lot to be learned. Equally, I think one of the things that when I've been speaking to Jen around these is it doesn't have to be an all-out approach. If you give each team, each department, a bit of money and a trip to IKEA, you can create some of these kind of experiences in quite affordable ways. So let's start going through. So one of the common themes of today is about thinking differently. Louise, I'll come straight to you, I apologise. What does that mean to you? What does thinking differently mean to you?
Okay, so for us, it's about I guess in terms of the workspace, it's the workspace is not just the office anymore. It's anywhere, your house, the garden, a coffee shop. So that's one thing for us in terms of the way of thinking and working in an agile way. The other thing is around task-based working rather than going to an office, sitting at a desk and just doing everything from that desk. It's thinking about what you're going to do when you go to the office, when you sit at your desk at home, and what the output is going to be from that. So we when we were looking at our office spaces there, we created lots of different types of spaces. So kind areas, collaboration spaces. So you walk in and you think about what you're going to be doing that day and sitting accordingly.
I think that kind of those different ways of working are quite important now, and certainly what I've seen with your organisation, you've got quite a lot of people that are on the road, and I think you're probably one of the only organisations that we've done Microsoft 365 training for exclusively on Android devices before work hours. So you've got a group of people that literally use Android devices day in, day out. Yeah. And they'll be too busy when they're on the job. So actually, I think Megan got up at 7:30 to train people on how to use Office 365 on Android.
Yeah. And we've got rid of swiping in and out, so we're not looking at time management at all as an organisation, and it's about that input the output and those outcomes that are most important, and not the time and the management of that. There were discussions about getting rid of annual leave and just doing your job, not thinking about time. But we're not going down that route quite yet, but it's a thought, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Mark, can I ask you the same question? What does thinking differently mean to you in Milstead?
I think probably one of the bigger things is similar to what you talked about earlier, is it's not necessarily how we're working and things like that. It's taking that step back and thinking about how you're actually going to implement it and what you're going to do, rather than, especially in an IT world, we love the technology, we love the flashing lights, and we're very much a case of thinking about, okay, back to how can we use the hammer, all those bits and pieces. Whereas it's much more important, I think, for us to now to think about how these people need to work, and then think how the technology can then sit in around the background to support that, rather than going, oh, okay, this hybrid working, these buzzwords, fantastic, let's have these collaborative spaces. Well, what are you actually going to use the collaborative spaces for? What do you need them for? There's no point putting in a high-level breakfast bar for people to collaborate on if they're just going to be sat down looking individually at a spreadsheet all the time. So I think the way to think better about it is take that step back. What is the outcome that you're trying to get to, or what is the issue you're trying to fix? Then can the technology or the systems around the background then support that and plug the gap?
One of my fondest memories of working with you guys, COVID had just kicked in. I don't know if you remember the first COVID spring, COVID summer. It was beautiful sunshine, and I spent most of it sat out in the garden working. And we did an adoption project, working very closely with Mark, talking to all the departments in Milstead Langdon. And I did most of it in the sun, underneath an umbrella, talking to people all around Milstead Langdon's organisation about the ways they work and how Microsoft could serve them. So it's been great to be on that journey with you. Could I ask the same question to Sam, because I'm going to come to Ben with the next question.
So for me, I think it definitely is about really fundamentally changing the way that you do your job as a person in technology. So, you know, when I first started tech, it was very much tech. It's all about flashing lights, like Mark and everyone's been saying earlier. But now it is about people. It's about how we can empower people to do their best jobs, give them the best tools, and like Mark was alluding to in regards to training the people to get the best out of the tools that we provide. Also building culture with the company that you work with, so that they don't see technology as a barrier or something that just says no because it's too hard. It's someone that, you know, you build that culture where you work with people so that you can get the solutions to empower people to do their best work, basically.
I think it's been really good working with IOP Publishing, and Sam, you've only been there for, is it a year now?
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been a year, to be honest with you. And I've known Sam for a while, but what I've seen with IOP Publishing is they're always willing to go out and think differently, to do things differently. And I don't know, from my perception to both of you in the time you've been there, I've seen you both thrive on that excitement on what is actually possible for you to do whilst your organisation is doing that.
Absolutely.
So Ben, the question to you, because I know you've just led quite a big project around all of this. What does the modern workspace mean to you?
It's a big question.
Define it for us.
So it's more than the place. That's the first thing. Obviously, we spent a lot of time and effort on making the office as we think it will need to be for the next 10 years. But actually, we're challenging what is work. You know, what does work actually mean? I come in the 90s. I worked in customer service and in call centres, and productive work was with your headset on, talking to a customer, landing a sale, or dealing with a billing call. And I think we're now thinking of work as also the gap in between. So the water cooler moments that we used to think were unproductive work, we're now recognising is actually a really core part of how you connect with each other. And what the COVID experience has done is really highlight how easy it is to be isolated if you're not sort of thinking more widely about what work is. And so we've been thinking quite a lot in IOP about how we can promote connectedness in the office, and that's reflected in the environment that we've created, I think.
Sam, you got anything to add to that from an IOP perspective?
I completely forgot the question. What was the question?
Around what does the modern workspace mean to you?
Oh, modern workspace is completely different to what it was the time ago, like Ben was alluding to. For me, it is, and I think you said this as well earlier, it's not about technology and having the whiz-bang features and everything like that. It's about being able to do your job seamlessly with technology as a part of that job, not just seeing it as something you must have or something that's cool or something that's shiny. It's something that you can just go in, get your job done in the most efficient and seamless way possible and fun. And really being able to kind of enjoy your work through the tools that you have available to you, and making sure that you're kind of always on the latest and greatest to really improve that efficiency where you need to.
Definitely. Mark, sort of pass on to you. I know as an organisation, you're a little bit different to some of the others. There's kind of people like coming into the office and things like that. So what is the modern workspace at Milstead? What have you
Yeah,
found?
we like to be different in some of the ways
Definitely.
that we do things.
That's good.
It's
Everyone
good.
is different.
I think when you first asked the question, the first thing that came into my head is collaboration. I think it's probably the biggest part of the modern workspace, whether it is at home or whether it is in the office where people want to come. But at the same time, it's also like you were saying earlier, sometimes it is just being able to be in and not collaborate. So you have to still have the ability to be able to tools down, work, how you need to do, use the right technology to concentrate on what you are doing, but then very easily be able to flip over to that collaboration mode. Because, well, similar to what you were saying earlier, you've got your back-to-back meetings, you don't need to commute anymore. 1 minute, you're wearing the hat where you need to be heads down, doing technical work, whatever it is you might be doing. And then 5 minutes later, you're there having a team meeting with 30 people. And you've got to be able to have the spaces where you can do that, whether it is in the office where we've got people that need to come in, work quite closely on some of the work they might be doing. We've got a lot of trainees, so a lot of junior people who this might be their very first job they've ever done. They might have just come from college or university. We can't expect them to be at home trying to learn how to work without the people around them to buddy up and help them. So it's creating that space where they can be at home if they have to, if they want to. They can come into the office, or they can flip between them nice, quickly and easily without having to do that 3-hour commute that I'm similar to you. I genuinely missed the commute when COVID kicked in. Didn't miss the drive, but I missed the commute. What I really don't miss is having to go from Bristol to Taunton to Yeovil to go to a meeting. And it's making those bits as seamless as possible between the different personas that we all have.
And I think that's from a Milstead perspective. On the face of it, when we started engaging with you, very traditional organisation, but has equally been very willing to embrace what works for your people and your organisation and your customers. So, Louise, on to you. So, everybody on stage here have gone through changes in the modern workspace. Are you able to just talk about what you've done, why you did it, and maybe any challenges that you've had along the way?
Okay, so we first looked at, before COVID, we had to look at the office space in terms of the capacity. We needed to sort of add more desks in. Everyone had their own desk. Like you said earlier, we do have a big workforce out on the road that don't ever come into the office, but primarily there's sort of 60% of staff come into the office. So we were running out of space, so we needed to look at different ways of looking at that issue. So we started to do some hot desking with certain departments. Didn't go down well. It was like, why me, this isn't fair. And then the positive thing that came out of COVID was that then went away. Everyone had to go home. We stopped sort of talking about the office and the hot desking and everything. And then we suddenly realised, okay, this is a good time to refurb our head office in Cardiff, look at what we need. So we started to run that project and refurb that office to what it is now. So challenges of trying to refurb in the middle of a pandemic is quite difficult. Resourcing, we're a housing association there's quite an element of public funding there, so we couldn't just have project managers to come in and do that for us. So I'm IT, but I ended up on the project team for the actual refurb. I was making decisions about like partition walls and things like that, which I had no idea about. But when the main guy was off, and it was like, oh, Louise can answer that. Okay, Louise has no idea. But
Building supervisor.
Louise can make it up. So there were some issues there around those sorts of things, and trying to engage with staff as well, because that engagement was difficult to do it purely remotely at the time. We've since gone back into a hybrid world, but when we started off that project, it was in sort of the midst of the pandemic. So yeah, quite a few challenges there.
Mark, so same question to you. Obviously, you've been through a large amount of change. Could you describe a little bit as to sort of what you've been, the journey that you've been on over the last few years, obviously with the ending with the office refit most recently, and the challenges?
Yeah, well, I'm back in pre-COVID. I think that's a technical definition now, isn't it? I can remember we were already starting the Microsoft Teams journey, the Microsoft 365. We'd already migrated to Exchange Online, which was our very first start of it. And I can remember a meeting, you came in yourself, I think Megan was there and maybe someone else. And it was that time where you had the meeting and there was that sort of back and forth. Should we shake hands? Should we bump elbows or touch feet, whatever it might be? So that was the sort of time when we were starting to talk about how we can start embracing some of these technologies. SharePoint, we were running, and we still are, we haven't finished the journey yet, a very old version of SharePoint. So we were trying to, at that point, learn what we knew we need to do some of the technology changes, but what is that new world going to be? And similar to you with your refit, how do you know what the new world is potentially going to look like? So I think one of our big challenges early on that was, what is the right technology for where we are going to be in I was going to say 5 years, but in 2 weeks. It kind of felt like at some point with the rate of change. So we just had to take it very slowly, with your help as well, to make sure that we were able to learn what the staff thought they wanted, and then evolve that a little bit to find out what they actually needed to move it on. And then when the refit came, we delayed it probably 3 times, I think. It just wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right time. And we moved in, I think, December last year, after literally stripping every single wall, every single floor, the whole thing went out. But during that refit, we realised people wanted to be in an office. We had to completely close our main office in Taunton for the refit, but people wanted to be in, the trainees and all people like that. So we had to then get a temporary office ready for those people that had to be in together, wanted to work together, whilst we were actually doing the refit itself. But now, once we're actually in, we've probably lived and breathed it for a year or so, and we've realised we haven't got things right. So we've got some of these collaboration spaces that we thought were going to be absolutely fantastic. They're used probably by me because I kind of feel like I have to use it to justify what's up there. There's a blue booth up there that you can see on the screen. It's a blue booth, which I don't think is that regularly used, to be quite honest. Lindsay at the back of the room, she's not far from it. And I'm guessing you rarely see people in some of these things. So I think one of the challenges was trying to guess what people want without necessarily knowing what they want in the new world. And now we're just going to have to start evolving it and realise, hands up, we made a mistake on some of these things, let's change it.
I think that's the important bit, and the bit that obviously Jen and I spoke about. Everyone is going through this at the same time. Everyone is having to be innovative and do things differently. And part of that is going, hey, this thing was wrong. I don't know, Ben, if you want to pick up from that, talk about obviously the journey that you've been on, but equally you're in that learning phase now.
Very much so. So we're fairly evolved in terms of our adoption of M365. So Teams adoption's great. We're doing a bit of Yammer. And we just finished a program of migrating all of our Confluence information into SharePoint. SharePoint is pretty mature as well. So we're pretty pleased with that. Then the pandemic hit, and we had to make some quick decisions. One of those decisions was that we were coming to the end of a 10-year lease on our building, and so we had an opportunity to actually move to a new building if you wanted to. And found a site that we really liked, and it was completely empty. So we had a real opportunity to completely rethink how we view our office. And one of the earliest decisions, I suppose, that we made is that we would be kind of hybrid first. We recognised early on that people will not come back in the same way that we worked before. And so how do we build an office that is kind of hybrid first? And so in the design, we worked with an agency that helped us with the look and feel, but they also helped direct how Microsoft Teams rooms would work. So we decided to go with MTR for that. And that influenced the layout in terms of making sure that the screens were not in the traditional way of being at head height when you're standing, but kind of mid-height when you're sitting, so that when you are sat around a table and you're peering into remote workers, that they are kind of at your height. And that really helps with the feeling of collaboration instantly. Our technology decisions were based on how do we serve the remote people first. So we put a lot of emphasis on sound. The cameras were also pretty advanced, but actually if you get the sound right, and you get the throughput that you need in order to have a kind of an uninterrupted sound quality, everything else will follow from that. Vision is obviously important to us, so we decided on Microsoft Teams rooms. We use the Lenovo Hub as our mechanism for controlling the room. We made it very simple. So when you set up a Teams meeting and you invite the room, there's literally one button to press, the join button. You click that button and everything just works. But simplicity is complicated. So we had to use a lot of advice from partners, and so we didn't do this on our own. So in terms of what challenges that we expected and we got was some resistance to coming into the office at all. We wanted to have a completely hot desking situation, so that we didn't have any hogging of desks. And there are some people that really feel that they need to have their space with their gonks, and we said no. Even if you're going to be occupying the same desk, it's not your desk. You're not assigned that desk. You might use that desk every day, but you're not assigned that desk. So there's been a little bit of resistance to that, but it's minority, I would say. And generally speaking, as long as you communicate well, and the other thing that we made very clear at the outset is that we will get this wrong. We said all the way through, we will not get this right on day one, and that's expected. And what we want to do is maintain the conversation once we launch, so that we can understand what's not working, and then we can work together on making some revisions. We've got some budget that we'll start spending next year that will actually change some of the rooms and spaces. There's 2 rooms or 2 spaces that we know are not being used very much right now. They look great, and they appear in all the photos, but they're not working. So we'll either up the ante on the comms, or we will get rid of the spaces and make them something else.
Brilliant. So, Sam, might be a difficult question. What's next for Modern Workspace in your organisation?
So for us, it is really doubling down on security. I think we really want to make sure that we've got our processes and our systems completely secure, because I think you alluded to it earlier, where obviously we have completely changed the way of working, and we need to make sure that security is also front of mind. So training our users and coaching them back into the office to not leave their machines unlocked is just such a basic thing, but yet something fundamentally we need to retrain on. Also, we have gone 100% cloud, so we operate 100% from Azure. And we just want to make sure that we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's next year to make sure that everything is robust and where it wants to be. But in regards to kind of for people, we are really starting to kind of invest in our champion network. So we've got some champions over here. Give us a shout out. But we really want to double down on this community, because we feel that when we have that community, people work better together, they can share ideas in regards to how people and processes can become better. And we really, because we have invested so much in Microsoft 365 and all the tools there, we really want to make sure we get the best investment out of it. So we encourage people to play around with the tools to see how it can benefit them, and then look at how we can do proof of concepts and then roll out for particular projects that are going on in certain departments or certain use cases that we might have come up.
Brilliant. Can I ask Mark the same question around what's next for Modern Workspace in your organisation?
Pretty similar, I think, to be quite honest. I think one thing that we've always tried to really embrace is that champion network. But I think quite often what we've done as a firm is we've created our champions. We've said, you are a champion for this, you are a champion for that. And it's not been as embraced as it possibly could be. Whereas the SharePoint project, for instance, that we've done recently, we actually asked people who wants to do it, which in our profession is quite unusual to ask staff what they think and what they want to do. And we massively felt the difference between that for that project compared to some of the others. Even the adoption piece that we worked on all those years ago, it feels like a very long time ago now, some of the people came forward for it, others we kind of persuaded to be into that group. And you could tell the difference, massively tell the difference when that was there. And I think the other bit that we need to do is, this stack has changed so much over the last 6 months, and we've gone, oh, this is fantastic, let's use Teams for this, let's use lists for this, or we can do some automation over there. And it's sprawled out, I think, probably further than I ever thought it would. And I just want to take a step back, consolidate it all, make sure we are using the right technology, especially using the right technology going forward. Again, if we were using some kind of automation that actually that's the wrong technology to use for that, well, let's screw it up, let's throw it away. Let's find out what is right. Start to get all that piece a little bit more centralised and consistent across the practice, and then evolve it from there, I think.
And I think that's important, and it'd be maybe important for you to reflect on where your organisation is on this journey. I think for all the organisations here, it started with, let's create some clarity. How should things be done? Where do we want things being communicated? How do different people communicate at different levels? There was a training and adoption element that has to keep on happening, but let's make sure everyone knows how to use the tools, make sure we're being inclusive, make sure we're not just assuming people know how to use it. We then started with maybe a migration phase, and documents started getting migrated. We've got an office refit phase. Teams telephony might start coming in. We then get, oh, hold on a minute, there's lots of change going on. What do we need to improve on security? But we almost then start again. And it's one of these things that kind of keeps going through and will keep on maturing. So the last point now as we're wrapping up, and Louise, we'll start with you. This is kind of a quick fire round. What feature are you looking forward to in Microsoft 365? Or if you're not looking forward to something that you really like today?
Well, I was looking at the Microsoft roadmap last week, and there was a little feature come in where you can hide your video when you're on a call. I find that very off-putting. I don't need to see myself on there. So being able to hide that or pin that would be very good. Looking forward to that.
Fantastic, yeah. So you're not so much concentrating on yourself and what you look like, concentrating on them. It's weird, isn't it? In a normal meeting, you don't see yourself, so why do you need to in Teams?
No, don't need to do that.
No, get that. Mark, same question to you. What feature are you looking forward to most?
I'm not sure if it's a feature as such, as more how it's all going to link together. Like Microsoft Loop, I want to see where they're going with some of these technologies. You've got Delve, where you can see people's profiles, see the documents you're working on. You've got Loop and Loop components, where you can have live dynamic content across multiple different types of platforms. But they're all just a little bit disjoint at the minute, I feel. So the bit that I'm looking forward to, hopefully, is it all being blended all into whatever it is they're going to go for, whether they're going to massively embrace Loop and there's going to be all these individual workspaces, or whether it's going to integrate a bit more tightly. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. And also not seeing my face on camera is actually quite a nice thing as well, I think. Ben, same question to you.
So at Ignite, they launched or discussed something called Microsoft Places. It's going to be very interesting what that will bring. One of the challenges that we've got is getting people together in the office is one thing, but getting the right people in the office at the right time is where I think Microsoft Places can fill a bit of a gap. So I'm really interested to see what comes from that. The other thing I was going to say, I'm really interested in the concept of asynchronous meetings. Yeah. So in order to get everybody involved in decision making, don't have your meeting synchronous, i.e. everyone in the same room at the same time, whether that's virtual or in room. How can you break that link so that you pose a problem through a video, you go away and do some thinking in your own time, and then you meet, again, virtually or in person, to then work out the answer or make the decision. So that kind of breaking of that link, I think, is going to be the next big thing that we want to get into. So tools that will help with that, I think I'm interested in finding out.
Fantastic. I think two really interesting subjects. Sounds like you might have pinched Sam's, but have you got another thing you're looking forward to?
Well, Places was mine. I think that really could revolutionise how, like Ben was saying, how people can just look at a very easy console to say, right, that person's in the office, I'll go in today because I can do some really good work with them. I think generally the Viva stuff it's coming together. Me personally, I probably shouldn't say this, I don't feel it's quite there yet, but I absolutely do see opportunity and potential where it is going to develop into kind of a one suite, I should say, of tools that really could help people embrace technology and also embrace themselves, you know, understand how they feel about themselves, how they communicate with other people, how they can work with other people, and bring all that information into one portal, I think is really exciting. So that's one that gets me.
Brilliant. I want to say thank you ever so much for my panel. A round of applause to the panel, please.